have your... Gentlemen, would you both stand? Raise your right hands. You swear testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
Each of you state your name in turn and you can spell your last.
E-E-N.
Please, be seated. In essence, we have two applications here. Which one are we doing first?
The field is up first, so.
Sure. At the March 5th meeting, we went through the plans fairly thoroughly at that time, so today we're going to just focus on the soil moving aspect of it, since that's what was requested the last time that we were in front of the board. For the field project, the majority of the soil moving comes from just stripping off the topsoil from the field area itself. A synthetic turf is proposed, and so we need to remove the topsoil. There's a larger than normal amount of topsoil on this field because the other turf field's topsoil was put on top. So that topsoil is stripped off in order to have a more structural base for the actual new turf field that's being put in. That amount of topsoil that's being removed from the topsoil removed is about 5,100 cubic yards, which again is just stripping off the topsoil, and there's not really much in, which is essentially the stone base for the field itself. We are lifting the grade a little bit in order to add some stone underneath the field in order to meet the stormwater requirements that is presented by the New Jersey DEP, the most up-to-date regulations that were published in 2023. We, of course, made sure to adhere to all of those regulations. So we have a fairly large amount of stone coming in to go beneath the field to make sure we mitigate the stormwater impact of the project. That quantity is about 5,200 cubic yards, similar to the amount of topsoil being brought off, but a bit increased. The strip topsoil is mostly going off-site down Wyckoff Ave towards the Wyckoff direction, with some of it potentially going to the Trapp-Hagen School. Though our understanding is that's not, initially maybe more was going to go there, but at this point we understand that there's not much going there. So it's more likely going down Wyckoff Ave for a very brief stretch before it leaves Waldwick entirely. The school did discuss with the police the route that could be taken to Trapp-Hagen, though again there'd be fairly minimal trips there since I don't think they want as much topsoil as they initially thought they might there. The other note on there was about trees being removed in the application, and we have 3 trees to be removed, though we are proposing about 24 new trees in the project. Essentially, that is the summary of the soil moving for the field project. Are there any questions before we go to the soil moving for the parking lot? Yes.
I believe you said 5,200 yards out and then 55 in?
It's more like 51 and 53. But yes,
okay, but
approximately.
so you're taking it out and then you're putting new stuff in?
Stone, yes. So the topsoil itself, you can't act in a structural way, so that has to be removed. The base that turf surfaces are installed on is a clean stone because clean stone allows voids where stormwater can flow through the surface and be held in the stone voids beneath to achieve stormwater.
Couple questions. This came up back with the football field. Is this the same system, generally speaking, as the football field's turf?
Generally speaking, yeah. They've
They've modified it, they've improved it, but...
Yeah, it's different for, the football field systems are very flat because there's typically a track around them, whereas this field is great. It's it might be the exact same turf product. We weren't around for the field project, for the football field project, but it's the same manufacturer of the turf that they have worked with for all 3 of the fields at the high school area, that they like that manufacturer. It's worked out for the other fields, so they're using essentially the same turf product.
Okay. What is the depth of stone that you're putting down?
It's a minimum of about 9 inches plus 3 inches or so of sort of a leveling course. That's a slightly finer stone. And then at the lower side where we're raising the grade, the thickness is more about 2 feet or so. Essentially being that the grade is dropping off and we are filling the grade, and so the space in between, yeah, so it increases. So it's at a minimum 9 plus 3, and then On the other side, it is 2 to 3 feet. There's also a perforated pipe that is collecting the stormwater and directing it. At that spot, it is also closer to about, I think, about 5 to 6 feet, just for a short channel where the stormwater pipe is.
The manufacturer of
I-
years, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, it's more of a, for them, it's more of a structural, that, same thing when we put in pavement, we typically have a DGA that's about 6 inches. It's enough to be compacted, but not enough to drastically change the grade. Obviously, every inch of stone you put in is more soil taken out. And their standards, I think, are, nationwide and international, whereas other states don't seem to care nearly as much about stormwater. So there's differences in there of the structural aspect versus the actual stormwater aspect of it.
Okay, you've got a 53 cubic yards of stone, approximately. You have a source for that?
Yeah, we have our stormwater report. We have calculations from that. We also did a surface evaluation in AutoCAD. On the grading plan, we have section views that are cutting through the field that I could go through if you want to. We have a surface evaluation where we compare the proposed surface that we render in AutoCAD compared to the existing surface that was surveyed by our survey team prior to the start of the project. So it comes up with a calculation. We adjust that calculation to account for other surfaces like concrete and things, and the actual 2 inches of the turf itself, and subtracting some, adding some, we end up with our number.
Okay, the source of the imported material is certified in some form or fashion to be clean?
Yeah, it's from local quarries. I forget exactly if we have
Tilcon or
this.
somewhere else? Tilcon or somewhere else?
Typically Tilcon or Brain. I don't remember off the top of my head where the submittal came was, but I could certainly provide that information after the fact.
Right. So we got 51 out, and I gather this is already removed? Or most of it?
Some of it, they're mostly soil moving and doing demo at this point in the project. They're not too far into it. They're, again, pushing soil around and prepping the surface at this point.
Okay, do we have a figure that you can give right here and right now for the total cut?
The total cut?
Total cut.
I mean, that 5,100 is
Is the total cut?
the total cut, because again, our proposed conditions is all sort of raised up a bit.
Okay. So, yeah.
I have a question. Have you encountered the,
But our contract documents call for the whole thing to be fully removed, so they have done a little bit of exploratory excavation to locate it
field, septic field?
in the soil remover. Import of stone to compensate that if they're removing concrete, that's additional concrete, which again is not. Remove the concrete and add the
What
stone.
about the leach field?
That the leach field and the leach field itself is made up of individual seepage pits. I think they recently found some of it that it was, at least some of them are filled or partially filled with sand. And so again, it's not too much additional soil that'll be removed. It's just the actual concrete itself, since the leach field is old enough to just be seepage pits.
Has the turf, have they shown any proof that it's been sampled environmentally for any contaminants? I mean, we had a big problem a couple years ago about sampling the turf, metals, and that.
Do sampling there, obviously, in national, in the allowed tolerances, as long as you're not eating it, I think.
Well, it doesn't matter about the eating thing, it's still there, and it could be there, not saying it's there, it could be there. Metals were a concern, mercury was a concern a while ago, and then now, most recently, the PFAS, which is very well known in our.
Specific testing information. Again, I know this is the same manufacturer that they've used for the other products as well. We will have the submittals from the manufacturer. I know they typically use, they don't recycle rubber in the same way that some other products do. They have, the crumb rubber is cold fabricated, I think is the phrase that they use. But if there's material from the manufacturer that we need, that's something that they could provide. That I don't
Thank you.
have the levels of everything. There's obviously tolerances.
And you said that you're removing 3 trees and putting in 24,
Correct.
so it's going all around the perimeter of the area?
They're mostly localized by Oak Place. So I think it's essentially that's a location that the field gets the closest to the neighbors there. So we have, 24 evergreens in that
And all
location.
this soil's leaving Waldwick?
Correct. There may be some that goes to Trap Hagen because it's all topsoil. So if Trap Hagen needs more topsoil, it may go there. That was our contract documents say for all of it to be removed properly and disposed of per the, legal requirements for removing soil from the site.
And you'll advise us if you're not doing it, you're going to traffic.
Correct. That's the school's decision of how much they do or do not
We need to
want.
know.
Sure.
And the police need to know, and also our building department needs to know.
Mhm.
And you know the start time and how work is done in Walworth? Time that you have to start work and,
You, like daily time?
yeah,
Yes, I believe it's 7 to 7. Is that it?
okay.
Yeah, we
You'll keep to that,
yes, that was discussed in our pre-construction meeting.
okay.
Are you planning on working Saturdays?
Nothing that we have. I don't have that fixed.
Then it's divided by 15 yards. And nobody has. It's
A
roughly
lot
a
of
truck.
trucks.
It's roughly a truck, 15 cubic yards. So if you divide the number that they have there, that's roughly a truck. So you gotta figure 10, 100, 150, 150 maybe is going and going.
You probably talked about this back in March when I wasn't here, but the surface that's becoming turf is from middle school to high school? It's that whole back, pardon me?
Not the whole back, but a lot of it in order to accommodate both the baseball field and the, yeah, if you can flip to the, yeah, probably 201. Yeah. So not the entirety of between the middle school to the high school. We cut off essentially at the corner of the middle school and go back at sort of an angle that follows the angle of the soccer, football, lacrosse field that's going to there, which is be more of a practice / maybe rec league if the township wants to utilize it. But yeah, by increasing it a little bit more, we were able to get a full-size field onto there, which obviously has a much more opportunity than if we had scaled it down to a smaller field. Once we realized we could fit it in there, the school had hoped to go in that direction.
Gotcha, thank you. Any other board members have questions?
Madam Chair?
Jim, of
I
course.
have a quick question. Regarding the stormwater management, will you be able to provide a maintenance plan with the proposed outfall and everything?
Yes, yeah, okay.
So that the borough has to report to DEP every year, major stormwater development. So this is one of the jobs we have to report to them every year. So we have to make sure that they provide that information to us.
Sure. Paul, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Any board, we're good for the moment? Questions?
Before we call for questions from the public, here's the way the questions, sworn in, you do that, then you don't get to ask questions. And then if you want to make a comment, there is a period for comment a little later. So this is not for comments, this is for questions. Sorry.
That's okay. Anyone in the public have questions at this time? Please come forward. Name, address, you'll be sworn in.
Joan Idelson, and I live at 5 Oak Place.
Can you just move that mic over to her, Justin, please? Thank you.
Joan Idelson, and I live at 5 Oak Place.
Hi, Mrs. Ferguson. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes,
State your name and spell your last for us, please.
it's Joan Idelson, Fytelson.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. I have several questions. My one question is, why I live right behind the high school. We were never notified at all that this was going on.
We're not, the Board of Education is the one that should be notifying you, because this is only about removing the soil, not putting in the turf or changing anything about it. So the fact that you didn't receive anything from the Board of Education is not on the board, this board, or the town council. So you have to bring that question to the Board of Education.
Okay, this has become a real problem for Oak Place. We have trucks that totally block
Okay,
us, and we
you're in-
cannot get
we
out.
slid into the world of comment. Is there a question there?
What can we do about it? I mean, it's like, I was late for a meeting the other day. I could not get out because I had a truck that took the whole street. I did call the police.
What did they do?
They came, they talked to the guy, and basically they said, well, he'll only be here, and then he'll be gone. Well, that was 20 minutes, and he left, and they came back. So it was going on all day. It was ridiculous. And we never knew about this trucking of soil. Does this affect our land where soil may fly off these trucks?
That again is, well, actually, Mr. Clevenger, can you address the efforts that are made to keep the soil where it belongs?
Yeah, the vehicles that are, they should be leaving from Wyckoff Ave when they are removing soil from the site. Before the project started, we
They
notified...
should be leaving?
We notified the contractor that the access points to and from the site are Wyckoff Ave. We will make sure to reinforce that to the contractor that,
This has been going on for weeks, and we've had like 6 trucks bringing soil out for,
All right, well, he's just going to answer your question, so we
Okay.
can't have
Yeah.
conversations, please.
we've instructed the contractor to use Wyckoff Ave. We will reinforce that, that Oak Place is not the ingress or egress point for this project.
okay, and then I was wondering, where's this water drainage going?
Currently, the whole field sheet flows into the brook there. That is, sorry, I'm losing the, Ellie, do you want to point to it? So there's the stream here that is down, I want to say 40 or 30 feet below the elevation of the field. Currently, that is where the water is going at this point. There's an outfall out there, and so the field is essentially, the water goes through the field into the stone below. It gets directed to an outlet structure, and that outlet structure releases the water from the site at a mitigated flow volume. So we essentially did an evaluation of what water is currently going where for the peak flows to ensure that the post-construction conditions will have lessened stormwater impact than what is currently there. Currently, I think the entire, let's just say right side of the field, since we're looking at the plan, flows off of the field and down towards those houses, but now with the proposed conditions, that'll all flow directly through the turf surface itself and get directed through an outfall to the river that is going along the left side of the building. And we also
That will
evaluated...
definitely go into the river and not into homes.
Correct. And we did an evaluation of what's currently going out of that outfall. And we're making sure that the water leaving that outfall in the proposed conditions are lower flows than what is currently going there. So we're collecting more of the field and sending it to the same outfall, but through the use of the stone that we're discussing as part of the soil moving permit, that stone will help us mitigate the flow that is leaving the site through that same outfall.
Okay, why did you remove so many trees?
We only moved a couple trees for this project. It was 3 trees. One is because we had new steps that were needed, and I think 2 were essentially along trees that we removed for this project scope.
24
Oh, I thought
are
you
going
said
in.
24?
Yeah,
24 are going in.
We're putting 24 new trees in.
Oh,
New
that's
evergreens,
good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, you can see, Elliot, can you point to the, those locations? That's where the 24 new trees are going in along Oak Place.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Feidelson.
Thank you.
Yes?
Good evening, Mr. Feidelson. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Oh,
Just
she
fine, thank you.
didn't cover everything?
Okay.
I have just a couple of...
Dave, you got to do the same thing. Please, microphone,
Sure.
raise your right hand. Do you swear testimony about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name again, spell the last for the record.
David Feidelson, F-Y-T-E-L-S-O-N, live in 5 Oak Place.
Questions?
Yes. Is the soil being tested for any sort of toxicity or any sort of, that could be damaging to the public?
Coming in or going out? I mean, the answer is yes for both, but the soil removal that is coming in has to be clean stone that will be put underneath.
Are we able to see the results, or has the results been published? So we know, and if there is any sort of toxicity, how are you going to protect the homeowners on the street because of the way that the trucks are going in and out of Oak Place with the soil? And there were, pardon me, but there were a lot more than just a couple of trucks removing the soil, because there had to be at least 5 or 6 trucks during that period of time, over beginning roughly the middle of last week.
Questions?
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Was there a stop work order because of concern that you didn't have a permit for soil?
It's
Not that mine,
it-
to my knowledge.
This board does not issue stop work orders. Any would come from, most probably, the building department, and I don't think there were any. No comment? There is of education, sovereigns in a sense.
So-
It becomes murky as to whether these gentlemen even have to be here at all. The board insisted that we would very much like them to come, and they were very, very willing to come.
Yes.
So from that perspective, they're doing the right thing, and even if the work has started, it was going to start regardless, and they're coming and they're showing their hand. So
Have any of you been to Board of Education meetings? That's the question. But I'm not allowed to ask questions, so strike that from the record. Next.
Our neighbors have,
Yeah.
okay.
and off the record perhaps, they were very dissatisfied with
I
What was-
recall going to many.
us.
So you have many.
Yeah.
Us too. So I am concerned about that with the removal of the soil. And as you said, you're supposed to take it out off of Wyckoff. I'll let the planning board know if more soil trucks come in and out.
Thank you, Mr. Feidelson.
Thanks, Dave.
And just to follow up on that, we also have protocols for cleaning up on a daily basis after the trucks, right? And there are also mechanisms in place to see that the truck tires actually don't carry their soil into the streets. And whatever does get there gets cleaned up, right? Thank you.
And I think you're going to have to do that very well, because you're going to have a lot of residents watching,
Yeah.
Many eyes.
and they have a right to.
And
It's good to
exactly.
care about your town.
Absolutely.
I do have a question. So when you say it has to go through Wyckoff Ave, that means they have to be in the parking lot of the high school, the trucks. So that's closed to faculty?
This points at, either side of the field, going past the middle school or past the high school. So that, there's students parked there, that the parking lot is full. The parking improvements aren't starting until later when the students are dismissed for the summer. But on our logistics plan, we had instructed the path out going through the parking lot, obviously going through the drive areas, onto Wyckoff Ave to lead through the site.
So who will follow up with the trucks that are on Oak Place, may I ask?
We certainly will, and I know the Board of Education noted that to the contractor at the start of the project.
Okay,
On your end, that's up to you who
Okay.
comes down to talk to
Understood.
that, but we will certainly.
all right, before, the public, just one second. Mr. Ramundo, please.
Yeah, one question. With regards to the use of the fire hydrant to use water on a daily basis, is there any reason why they don't have a backflow preventer on there, as they should, as per code?
I was not aware they were using the fire hydrant for water. Our plans had instructed to get water from, for the new bathroom from the existing utility building, which does have a backflow preventer. They're starting the logistics of that, and so we will certainly talk to them about that, to be using water from the fire hydrant rather than the school itself.
Thank you.
Ma'am, you waited patiently, please.
Hi, Elise Didamo, 162 West Prospect Street.
Hi, Ms. Dittamo, if you'd raise your right hand, please. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, but they're just
And
questions.
you've stated your name, but please spell your last, please.
Dittamo.
Thank you.
First question is, the trees that you removed, do you know how old they were?
I don't know how old they were. We have diameters for the trees. One was a larger tree that was close to the school and sort of overhanging a retaining wall. So it was removed to provide the fire egress from the back of the school down towards the field. Two of the other trees were smaller, I think about 12 inches or so
Okay.
for the diameter for the field project.
And I know you said you're bringing in 24 trees, but you're bringing in 24 evergreens?
Yes,
You're not
because
bringing in
they-
any deciduous trees that would provide oxygen to replace?
That is for the, I believe the parking lot project has some deciduous trees. Though for our project, it was more thinking to provide evergreens for that. As you can see during the spring and fall, there's a lot of leaf cover, and then having evergreens there also provides additional cover for the rest of the winter months.
So the turf, I know you said it's going to drain underneath and flow in a certain way to make it less stormwater, because some of these streets have already been, inundated with some stormwater. I don't know when the survey was done, because I'm just over and not idling. So with the turf versus grass, how much water is seepage down in the time frame? Will the turf make it seep slower?
It's an interesting question. When we do our stormwater calculations, there's guidance provided by National Atmospheric and Oceanic to calculate differences between grass. We essentially model it as a basin that holds water underneath the field. So though we essentially model it going from a grass area to essentially what would be a parking area, and then have to mitigate it as such, even though personally I believe it is less impactful than a parking lot. But we are able to model how the water will be held under the field and slowly released from there. We also did percolation tests prior to doing the project, which revealed that the field did in fact have a pretty good percolation rate of water going through the soil. And so the system where we hold it underneath the field will allow sort of the lower half of the turf field to continue allowing water to absorb into the subsurface there.
Thank you. Does the turf get hotter than regular ground?
It can. The school did, I believe, they purchased the turf surface on their own. It wasn't part of our contract. But it's my understanding that they got the turf infill, which is what makes the field soft. The infill they got was an infill that is supposed to resist heat and cool the field. I think it was somewhere along 20 to 40 degrees or so to prevent some of the higher heats that are seen in some turf fields.
Because as you know, everything is getting hotter right now. So the less trees and the more impervious ground you have, the hotter the atmosphere around it
Questions?
is going to be. What are you doing about any of the wildlife in the area?
We did have our land use team go out the body of water that is going along the property. We, and actually I think Boswell in 2021, did a similar study to figure out the wildlife that in that area and the dependency on that water course, and that the DEP places an offset, a riparian zone offset for the field itself. So for this water body, there's a 50-foot riparian offset, essentially meaning that from the top of the bank, 50 feet back from there, you can't disturb any of that. So all of our improvements remain outside of that 50-foot offset to make sure that we're not cleared field area. So everything that has been converted to grass, which once something's converted to grass is typically seen as not part of the ecosystem. So it's all remaining inside that grass area, so we're not encroaching any farther than that. And the minimal amount of trees is on the side. It's
Okay.
not towards the river itself. It's just inside.
No, I know
the
where
river
those,
property.
I know where those
Sure.
trees are. I know where the owls lived in that tree.
Sure.
That tree. When was the water study done? I know that there was a study done at some point, and I'm wondering what time of year it was done?
The percolation tests.
Yeah, there was notifications going around that there was going to be some
So
studies done
sure.
last year.
That, I believe, was over the summer. I think they went out and did it maybe in July.
Last summer?
Yeah, I think it was last summer.
Okay, because we had a high water level last summer, so I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that the study was done when we were pretty much at our height.
Yeah, we started our project essentially in July and August and started our investigation at that point. And the stormwater tech, the percolation test and things rates that we did were done around that same time.
And my last question was just on, the letter that came out said this was a hearing, so is it not a hearing?
It is a hearing in that, what you have to understand is, the board, through their engineers, did present. This is just for the soil movement.
Okay.
And as such, we're giving a little bit of latitude, but there's only so much latitude we can give. We can't revisit the whole project
I
yet.
understand. I
So
just had
it
some
really,
questions.
it goes to soil movement, the effects of that soil movement relative to where the water goes, and whether it is retained on site in accordance with site improvement standards, and whether it is directed outwards in an appropriate manner and consistent with law.
Just one last thing. You mentioned that there might be a pipe or tube of some sort under that was going to push the water in a certain direction? Or did I misunderstand what I heard?
No, that's correct. It directs the water to the outflow structure. But once it gets to that outflow structure, the structure itself has a number of outflow points that start small and get bigger for incrementally larger storms. So though the water is directed to the outlet structure immediately throttles the water that is going there. So the pipe itself is more in service of the structural subbase to allow the water to go out without potentially moving the soil underneath the
And
area.
that's along the drop down, is that correct? Like along the
Sure.
stream?
Yes, it's a long to which is
Okay, thank you,
yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Mrs. Didimo.
thank you.
Anyone else in the public have questions?
Mr. Venture, could you speak quickly to the comparison between the percolation of the
Yeah, have time to see what the most strict result that we get, and then having it to do our calculation. So we utilize the percolation rate at a very reduced amount to do our calculations, as the percolation rate is beneficial to our calculations. So we basically have it to make sure we're not over assuming anything. But there's a little bit of difference, which is why we hold the water underneath the field, whereas a typical field, the grass itself, it absorbs some of the water itself for utilizing for the grass
getting
itself.
absorbed all the way down, whereas
Yeah,
here,
whereas
it's not
we
till you hit the
throttle
stone.
it. Yeah, we throttle it before it goes out, so that that same water can go into the ground and can be released from the field slowly.
Thank you.
Time for comments?
Were there
Anyone?
any other questions?
Nope, there were none.
All righty. In that case-
You have another question, Mrs. Feidelson?
That river you're talking about, that dead ends at Oak Place. So where else does it go?
There is a pipe that goes underneath the road there. It continues, just not surface flow in that same way.
That goes underneath the road?
Yeah.
Okay. And where does it flow to? White Pond? Or where does it go?
I don't know off the top of my head. The New Jersey does map out where all of these go once they're piped and go underneath.
I think that's something you should look into.
Yeah, I did look into it. I just didn't memorize
Yeah.
it before this meeting.
Yeah, because if that pipe ends up at a road, then that water's going to come up.
Yeah, it obviously the water right now goes to that location, so it goes somewhere. Obviously, again, we looked into this. I didn't memorize it, but it continues going through a pipe. It doesn't. It ends as a river, but it does not end as a water course, if that makes sense. And the flow going to that is lessened. You know, the peak flow of the water going to that is lessened. So we have a beneficial impact to potential flooding to anything downstream of our project area.
I hope it doesn't flood.
Me too.
Thank you.
I'm not being flip, but I would assume that given the fact that we don't have an Oak Place pond, it has to be released somewhere.
Yeah.
So dead ending is really not necessarily an accurate
Mr. Singer.
description.
No.
I can answer that question.
Thank
It does
Please.
outfall to the dam. There's an outfall to the dam.
Ah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I
Jim.
could have figured it had to be going there, more or less.
Can I ask, Mr. Mayor, also, this is for the town question, also, the O&M plan is monitored by the Board of Ed, their own consultant, or is the town going to be monitoring that, or, because the annual inspection has to be done every year.
Yeah.
Has to be done by an engineer, and I'm sure that I'm assuming the high school's going to, or the Board of Ed is going to hire them to do that. And they have to go through, you'll be looking at that O&M plan, I assume, at the same time?
Yes, that's correct.
They'll review everything for them.
The Board of Education is required to do that. Obviously, the town's there to enforce that. They do it. So there's procedures already in place to send out reminder letters and things of that nature, with the annual permit, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and the question, you talk about the concrete outfalls, everything. The pits under, I guess they're not open pits underneath the concrete open pits or tanks per se. They're gravel pits that hold back the water, correct?
Correct, yeah.
They're not, open tanks.
Correct. That is one of the ways that stormwater can be handled, but in this circumstance, we're relying more on the gravel brought in.
A gravel, yeah.
Comments from the board? Comments from the public?
And Mr. Fridelson, you're still under oath.
Yes, thank you. Your answer to the question about when the water testing was done, I just want to say that I received a letter from LAN dated October 24th. That should have been the starting point of the request for the water testing. Because if the water testing was before that, it would seem that that was basically useless.
It's not really water testing. The notification that you guys had gotten was essentially notifying that we were submitting information to the DEP based upon the study that we had done for the riparian zone and the flood hazard area from the water course that's by that location. So the notice that you got was similar to the notice that people have to provide before going to the planning board to essentially say that something is being done. So we had done it prior to that, in the months in the end of summer and early fall, and then the notification itself was saying that we are submitting to the DEP, and the DEP has a requirement themselves to notify everyone within 200 feet of the property.
To me, that seems a bit confusing, because you're getting a letter and it doesn't tell you any of the results or what the purpose was or anything else. So I just wanted to point out the date of the letter that I got. The other question is regarding the 7 o'clock start, as you're aware of.
Sure.
Prior to 7 o'clock, still making a lot of noise. And I'll admit, they didn't start moving until 7.
Sure.
But again, that does cause some problems. And again, it's steady traffic up and down our street throughout the day. And it's ruining the street.
Sure.
So I'm just leaving that open for the,
So
I don't know, but
I think we do have an ordinance. Yeah.
And it's a law.
the one day I looked at it, there were 2 trucks on our street and 2 trucks on West Prospect. That at 7 o'clock, they did start to move.
Call out PD. They're there at 6 a.m.
Well, now the planning board knows.
Yeah. We can't enforce that, but you can call the police for them to enforce it. But that's comments from the public. Seeing none. Mr., is it?
Your turn?
Tell me his last name. Curio?
Prevention, was there anything else that you wanted to say to sum up?
No, I did look up on our site plan that at the end of the water course, when it goes under the
Folks,
street, it's a
sorry.
3-foot by 6-foot culvert going under there. So that's where it gets underneath the water, just in case anybody was wondering.
Thank you. This is regarding the parking lot at the high school.
Thank you again for having us tonight. So this is regarding the parking lot project. Just a very quick overview. We are proposing a smaller parking lot down to the south that used to be a grassed area, and then grassed area primarily for this. Regarding the soil moving portion of this application, we are estimating a total cut of 1,380 cubic yards. 442 cubic yards is the soil removal for the stormwater basins located in the There's one in each proposed parking lot.
I'm sorry, forgive me, could you repeat? It's 1380 for the cut,
Yes,
and then your next figure was 1,000 what?
442, not 1,000, 442.
Okay, 442, and that is the drainage.
Correct, the soil removal for the stormwater basins, the
Stormwater.
subsurface stormwater basins, the hardscape surfaces, so that includes the parking lots, that includes the walkway, so essentially the topsoil that'll need to get replaced by the concrete and by the stone base for that. That's regarding the cut. Now, regarding the backfill, we are estimating 730 cubic yards of stone backfill that needs to be brought to the site. 220 cubic yards of that is for the stormwater basins. So essentially, you have these plastic chambers that are surrounded by stone that facilitate and holding of additional stormwater, and 510 cubic yards of stone for the hardscape surface. So this is your stone base for the road, for the parking lot and for the walkways. Approximately 450 cubic yards will be moved within the site, so this is to raise elevation. And 930 cubic yards, we are estimating, of soil that'll need to get removed off-site.
Total with 2 parking lots.
Correct. The top parking lot is just mill and repave, so they're only taking away. We're doing a little bit of surface adjustment there, but again, primarily it's milling and repaving. So they're taking out 1.5 to 2 inches of the top and then repaving that in. And very similar to the athletic field, if any topsoil is needed at Trap Hagen, they will follow the very similar via Wyckoff Avenue.
And you say you're adding parking spaces to the...
Correct,
both
correct. So
sections?
essentially, other than these 2 parking lots in this area that we are adding in completely new, we are repositioning the existing parking spaces at the high school. We're positioned at a 60-degree angle, so when you can pull in easily. By reconfiguring them to 90 degrees, we're able to fit in a lot more parking spaces, as the high school needs even more than this, but, you know, this was all that we could get on site.
What's the total number of spots?
Sure, if you give me. So we are having a net gain of 76 parking spaces and a net gain of 40 ADA parking spaces. So a total of 80 spaces all in.
That's a lot of spots.
Agreed.
But you're taking all that grass out from the sidewalk back?
From here and here.
Yeah. That's a lot of
And none of the soil is taken
pavement.
out yet.
Has the soil been taken out? I know they started work. They may have started with the soil movement, but they did start work at the
Where they
site.
take it.
We are, we'll have to,
Once you got it all aggregated?
till June, if I'm not mistaken, but the contractor had availability earlier, and then the Board of Ed accepted that earlier availability as they really need to get moving on this project. So it started earlier. So, correct, it should have been stockpiled until everything was ready, and then it would have been taken off-site.
And when do they think the project will be done? Same time as the other one, or?
Hopefully sooner. We were preparing from June to about August, if I'm not mistaken.
Before school starts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
before school starts.
Before school starts, correct. But since they started earlier, they may even finish before the athletic field.
The field has a few longer lead items, so it's expected to be functionally done, but with a few things that need to be finalized.
Same rules apply, folks. First, we'll have questions from the board. Anyone? Any trees coming down over there? Are there any trees in that area?
Correct.
There were in
We are
the front.
removing 13 trees
I'm sorry
total.
if you said that.
Yes, 13 trees are being removed, and we are proposing to replant, one second, we are proposing to replant 9, and then there's, in order to comply with the town ordinance regarding tree replanting, we are also having 4 of those trees count as part of the athletic field project, since they are part of the same project.
The two projects together have adequate tree
So the
replacement.
trees are being removed so that you could accommodate the,
Correct. Primarily for this lower lot. I could show where the existing trees are. So primarily, we have 5 trees located down in that southern portion, and we have 4 other trees located in that northern lot, and then the other trees are located within the existing parking islands. So essentially, those all needed to be removed in order to extend the parking lot.
and they're removed already.
Yes.
Thank you. Board? Good at the moment?
You're not doing anything with the road that goes to the north, down there at all?
This roadway, it will be milled and repaved.
You're not widening it at all, or?
No, it'll remain the same. Gonna pave the grass?
Pave the grass that's over there?
They shouldn't.
No, yeah, because you're already paving a lot, but,
And any curbs that are there, they're going to be replaced with.
We have it so that essentially there's a unit price built into the contract, so any curbing that's needed to be replaced, and the board, if they have the budget for it, they'll replace it.
They're not putting any sidewalk along that road at all?
No, no sidewalks proposed at this time.
that sidewalk. All right, public questions. Seeing, ma'am?
I just can't see the picture, and I'd like to see the picture.
Go right ahead.
If you can show me where those trees are coming, I'd like to see which grass areas
Sure.
you're taking out, because,
So-
can I see come close and see what
Absolutely.
what streets are there? I'm sorry.
The trees are located primarily along Wyckoff Ave, so it's
Okay,
that,
So they're the front side.
yes. So these are the trees along Wyckoff Ave that are being removed in that first lot, and then the remaining are well within the parking lot, so you may not be able to see them from the street. if
But
you're
there, are
driving
they
by.
those little islands?
Yes, in the island, but also the trees.
Where they have the flowering trees?
Correct, so we are removing the trees in those islands and then also in the other locations.
Anyone, questions? Seeing none? Comments, board? We're good? Any comments from the public? Seeing none? Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
We appreciate your time
Yeah.
and your expertise, truly.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Safe travels home.
Thank you.
And we need a motion. Board members, we do need to motion to approve the soil moving permits for both. Motion, Joe, M, and Mayor.
Excuse
And
me,
that would cover
I'd like
both.
to make a statement
Yes, sir.
real quick. Since you want us to make a vote on they already started the job. So what are we approving? Just, I approve, we have no say in what to do as
It's
far as.
really-
That's part of the record.
Unfortunately, they're here as a courtesy.
I know, and I appreciate them coming very courtesy, but you're asking us to vote on a courtesy now. And the problem is that we're approving a permit that they've already started and done, so they basically, yes, they've ignored the
Well-
planning board.
To
The
be
Board of Ed
blunt-
should have come.
Look, to be blunt, how many times do people come in with projects they've already done without permits, and this board or the zoning board then retroactively approves them? Happens all the time. It shouldn't, I don't disagree with you, but it becomes a question of practicality.
I understand it.
And your comment is well placed. I'm not saying it isn't.
And it is part of the record, so we appreciate that. But we will continue with a motion to, as a courtesy, that will continue. I don't think you need to stay for that, but thank you for waiting.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we did have a motion by Joe and a second by Mayor, and that covers both. Roll call, please.
Ms. Totaletti?
Yes.
Mayor Giordano?
Yes.
Mr. Gregor?
Yes.
Mr. Remindo?
Yes.
Mr. Fink?
Yes.
Mr. Misselwick?
Yes.
Mr. Basilico?
Yes.
Mr. Penfile?
Yes.
Mr. Schatz?
Abstain.
Mr. Schultz?
Thank you. Next, continuing the site plan and soil moving permit for Harrison Avenue redevelopment, 25-1. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Whitaker.
No problem.
Madam
It's
Chair.
good that you walk around and...
Madam Chair, Mr. Singer and Mr. Whitaker, as I did previously, I'm forced to recuse myself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Fink, I think you're up. For the record, Mr. Fink is now on board. Mr. Mayor recused himself.
Good evening, Mr. Whitaker.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chair. Ready for the go? I didn't know if you
Floor
were
is
still
yours.
doing this. Okay.
Ready to
Good
go.
evening, Mr. Chairwoman, members of the board. Just for the record, Bruce Whitaker from the firm McDonald Whitaker. On behalf of the applicant, this is a continuation of the public hearing that was commenced at the last meeting. Just to give you a very brief overview, at the last meeting, we concluded the testimony pertaining to our civil engineer, and he confirmed that the application itself was basically variance-free from what we were proposing, and it met the conditions of the ordinance that we were working under. On the second witness that we had, Mr. Zamplin, testified as to the architectural elements, and on the basis of that, we concluded the hearing. There was one issue that had explained, and that had to do with for the parking lot. The gate's gone. Okay, so there will not be a gate or door there, and so the entry issue that we wrestled with a little bit is no longer an issue. So with that said, what I'd like to do this evening is introduce our next witness, Mr. Moore, who is going to go over the landscape aspects of this, and then from the purposes of finishing our presentation, we have our traffic expert and benefit of his report. So unless there's any questions of me, I would have Mr. Moore sworn in.
All right, Mr. Moore, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes,
Please state your name, spell your last.
sure. It's William Moore, M-O-O-R-E.
Thank you. Mr. Whitaker, you want to...
Mr. Moore, would you give the board and members of the public the benefit of your education and professional background?
Sure. I am a New Jersey licensed landscape architect. I received a Bachelor of Science. I received my initial licensure in 1999 in the state of New Jersey. The landscape architects are licensed under the Board of Architects in New Jersey. I've been practicing in this area for roughly 30 years. I'm the president of the firm Moore Design Landscape Architects. We're a relatively new firm with about a year and a half experience. Prior to that, I was the lead landscape architect for Cipriano Landscape Design for 20 years. And prior to that, I was a landscape architect and project manager with Land Concepts in Franklin Lakes.
Would ask
Thank
that Mr. Moore be qualified as an expert witness in the field of landscape architecture and be able to render a professional opinion in that field.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Moore has demonstrated his both experience and his education with respect to landscape architecture. As such, he's been qualified as an expert in that field. The difference between an expert witness and opinions, and give them to you. To the extent that you find those opinions to be helpful, you are absolutely allowed to rely upon them. However, if you find either the opinion or the underlying facts upon which the opinion is based to be questionable in your mind, you do not have to rely upon them. You are not mandated to. So use Mr. Moore for the help that he can give you. Mr. Whitaker?
Thank you. Mr. Moore, you've been retained by the applicant for purposes of creating the landscape design for this project, am I correct?
That is correct.
And on the basis of that, you have prepared plans, and we have them marked on your exhibit list already as A14 and A15. Those are plans that were designed by you, which has a date on it of February the 6th, 2025.
That is correct. And versions of the same plans that were submitted to the board.
So what I would like you to do is take us through this project step by step as to what type of landscaping is being proposed for this project.
Okay. So these plans are oriented the same way as the site plans that were previously submitted. These are drawn at a scale of 1 inch equals 10 feet, so you can, they're enlarged so you can see them a little bit better. The first sheet that I have up is sheet 1. It is the north portion of the site. So we have Frederick Street and then continuing along Harrison Avenue on this section. The proposed plantings are shown in these larger circles. These are actually the proposed trees for the site. So there's 3 residences with pull-in driveways. What we have are 1, 2, 3, 4 proposed trees along Frederick. The trees in this area range from greenspire linden tree to Constellation dogwood to a few amelanchiers on this section here. As we turn onto Harrison Avenue, we have a repeating street tree motif where there are greenspire lindens, the larger circles here and here, shown here. I'm going to pick up sheet 2 here for a moment so I can just continue on with the street tree planting. Continuing along Harrison Avenue, the larger circles are the greenspire lindens, 1, 2, 3, and then a repeating paperbark maple. The street tree and the streetscape is proposed to be a combination of trees, shrubs, perennials and ornamental grasses along the residences, as well as along the sidewalk. There's pavers. They're either brick or concrete pavers along this area for foot traffic. And then on the other side of the sidewalk, at each plant turf lawn, where it's washout along the street. So it provides a very clean appearance along these areas. Continuing along Harrison Avenue, we go up West Prospect Street, where it's the entrance into the rear parking portion of the site. We have some foundation plantings along the building portions. These plantings range from mostly shrubs, but they're boxwoods and ornamental grasses like fountain grass through into the enclosed parking space in the center of the buildings. We again are repeating some street trees along this space to break up the buildings and also give some shade in this space. So what we have are Princeton Century ginkgo trees on this portion of the building. And then on this side over here, we have another greenspire linden, as well as sheet 1 here to show the rest of the interior parking lot area. Just coming along, we have 2 more Princeton Century ginkgo trees softening this building in this space. There are some plantings at the back side of the building along this walkway where there's an entrance into this building over here. Those are consisting of hollies and hydrangeas.
And Mr. Moore, you've been doing this for a number of years as a landscape architect. The type of design you're proposing here, would it be correct to say that this design basically is the type of design for landscaping aspects for a streetscape?
Yes, it is. It's greatly improved over the existing streetscape conditions that are there. And then we also worked with the municipal code in the performance standards, number 97-85E. Landscaping shall be provided as part of the overall site plan design and integrated into building arrangements, topography and parking, and buffer requirements. Landscaping shall include trees, bushes, shrubs, ground cover perennials, annuals, plants, sculpture, art, and the use. So what we've tried to do is not just create a monoculture with these plants and just repeat the same 4 plants across. We have a very diverse plant palette shown on this plant schedule on the top of the planting plans. And there is a repeating motif as we go along, starting with the trees and working down to some of the foundation shrubs in those areas.
You've had the benefit of looking at the architectural plans prepared by Mr. Zampolin, correct?
Yes, we have.
Would it be correct to say that the landscaping you're proposing interior on the site as well as on the streetscape itself will complement the architectural plans that have been submitted?
Yes, they will. We've tried to create just a little bit of softening of the architecture and trying to bring those trees away from the building so that you have a nice buffer between the roadway and the buildings.
You've had the benefit, and I've reviewed with you the Boswell report of March the 26th, 2025.
Yes, yes,
I'm
we
going to
have.
direct your attention to paragraph 37. There are some comments made in the Boswell report, and let's just go over them in an overview. There's a request in paragraph A that the One Green Mountain Boxwood, if you can point that out at the western building area off West Prospect Street, and that be accomplished. Paragraph B says, and requests that we provide a diverse, multi-layered, comprehensive design. The testimony you've provided now, in your professional opinion, is this a diverse, multi-layered, comprehensive design?
Yes.
C is the applicant shall address any landscape lighting proposed. Any proposed?
We were not brought on to do the landscape lighting design, so no, there's no landscape lighting design proposed on these plans.
And we'll stipulate if it's something that we think needs to be done at a later date, we can do that. But it would be a field change. But obviously, we're going to meet all of the lighting ordinance conditions that was testified to by our civil engineer at the last meeting. We'll stipulate to paragraph D of the report that there will be a 2-year guarantee for planting. It's a recommendation by Boswell, and we will adhere to that. Next, Mr. Moore, the mulch that's going to be used. No red dye mulch, correct?
Dyed mulch, so we could stipulate that it's on the plans as needed, but yes, no dyes.
Landscape performance bond we're stipulating obviously has to be posted. And then it says planting notes for the nursery stock, installation, warranty, et cetera, has been satisfactorily provided on the plan. So in essence, Boswell is concurring with the detail that you've provided, correct?
That is correct. And if I can just go and jump back to item B, we do propose to have irrigation for the entire site as well. So as part of planting like this, there will be an irrigation system installed.
And in your professional opinion, the types of plants that you are proposing and can thrive in these locations on this property?
Yes, yes. We specifically used all these planting selections for this type of environment.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Board members, we have questions?
Is there, how tall are the trees that you're putting in?
So the trees are gauged by caliper size. So the caliper, but just for an example, trees like that, those will probably be 12 feet high. The greenspire lindens along the road, those are also at 3 to 3.5 inch caliper. Those trees will probably be 12 feet plus tall at time of installation.
And this is leading to my other question is, Harrison has all the overhead wires that run along that side of the road.
Correct.
And your trees are going to get into those wires. I don't know what the question is here, but I just wanted to point it out that you're putting trees under, and there's a substantial number of wires. There's 3 or 4 or 5 wires. They may get caught up in there in the future. And not right now, up to 12 foot high, it's not going to be a problem. I'm sure they're going to be they're probably going to be talking about trying to trim them, the bushes.
Right, and so the selection of trees was also considerate of that. We're using more of a pyramidal tree, so it's a green spire linden, correct.
Yeah.
So the larger trees along Harrison are selected for that reason.
That there was a stormwater water management system?
No, they will not. Primarily, I saw a few iterations of the plans. Most of the stormwater was in this parking lot area as well as in between the buildings. So there are no tree plantings in the areas of those stormwater management.
I will note that from the prior exhibit, we saw stormwater management systems on the back of the property, towards the back side of the townhouses. And I believe that wraps around the backside, and to be mindful of that.
Okay.
It's done for that purpose.
I believe last time we also spoke about the light level started to drop towards the townhouses on the back. The trees being installed, will they impact any light levels coming from the townhouses onto that access way?
I refer to
The 5 townhouses at the top, I don't believe there are any light posts on that side. and that the light level started to drop as they hit the main access way going left to right.
Okay.
Prior testimony said there would be residential lighting on those townhouses. I'm unsure if the trees being planted in front would diminish that lighting onto that access way.
Not really. These trees are set up to be street trees, whereas the branching starts at 8 feet and higher. So any light can spill out into this area.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you know how many total trees have to be removed as part of the whole project?
Yes, I saw the plans from Conklin Associates and read the minutes from the last meeting. There were 22 trees proposed to be removed on those plans. I went and walked the site just this week just to assess the trees that were in that area. So a few of the trees were dead, and then a number of the trees were Norway maples. Norway maples aren't planted commercially anymore, so most of those trees probably are an invasive species. So of the 22 trees, about half of them were either dead, in decline, or this Norway maple species that I'm speaking about.
So you're replanting pretty much equal amount what you removed?
So we're replanting 18 deciduous ornamental and shade trees in the project, and then there's also 11 evergreen trees. So the total number is more than what's being removed.
And second question, will there be an irrigation system?
Yes, there'll be an irrigation system for all these plantings.
Anyone else on the board? Jim, I think we can ask the... Same applies, you'll be sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I will.
Please state your name and your address and spell your last name.
My name is Patricia Hartig, HF.
Thank you. Mr. Whitaker, can you move that mic for her, please?
Certainly.
Thank you, sir.
This is just questions, right?
Yes, ma'am.
When will we get to our concerns, when I can come in and...
Comment?
Comments and concerns about this whole project?
Well, we've been hearing about the project. This is our second or third month.
I haven't been able to express my concerns
You
about
could
it.
have
Question.
anything you could say anything you'd like when it's comment time, but right now it's question time.
Okay.
Comment, the
My fir-
comments will come at the end of the entire
Presentation.
presentation.
I'm having a...
End of the entire.
Okay, my biggest, what are you doing, about drainage there with the gardens? We have a real water problem on Harrison Ave. I have 3 pumps. What will you do to alleviate the water problem? Now, you're digging up all this soil, you're removing trees that drink water. What are you going to do about, not having that much plantings, that big trees that are going to drink water? What are you doing for that in your gardening, like for drainage?
The site engineer designed all the drainage for the site.
So the site engineer testified at the last meeting, testified as to the drainage aspects, testified that the drainage plan that's being proposed meets all of the design criteria promulgated by the state of New Jersey, and that was confirmed by the board engineer. And the civil engineer took into account what was being planted here as part of the overall drainage scheme, and obviously the sprinkler system is something that the civil engineer proposed. We stipulated at the last meeting, and we confirmed again tonight to have those plants grow. And we are planting more trees now than are being removed.
But they're not as big, right?
Understood, but it's all been taken into
And,
consideration to answer your question.
Okay, I'm worried about the infrastructure and the water and so forth. What's being done? Are we going to have water pipes breaking like the other side of town?
Drainage aspect of this testimony or his
Okay.
expertise.
He's
a landscape architect.
Okay, I understand that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else in the public? Questions? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a
Ms.
small
Dittamo,
question.
you're still under oath?
Yep. Is there,
Please state your name.
okay, Elise Dittamo, Dittamo,
And your address?
162 West Prospect Street, Waldwick, New Jersey. Okay, but I'm still under, I
You're
didn't
still
realize.
under oath.
Was there any thought to putting any kind of park benches into the landscape for seating? You know, if it's part of a revitalization project, then.
We weren't brought in to, talk about any public spaces for that.
Okay.
Really, it was the planting design and some of the streetscape landscaping that we were doing.
We met the criteria of what the ordinance required, including the location for bicycles and things like that. Nothing in the ordinance, though, about benches.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't think it was an
That's
ordinance.
a good question,
but,
though, I like it.
But if
Yeah.
it's a revitalization project, I'll comment later.
Thank you. Anyone else, questions? Seeing none. Comment time for the board. Any comments?
Any questions?
Oh, we haven't,
Right.
that's okay.
It's my bedtime, just saying.
Calling Mr. Polyak to be sworn in.
Sir, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
If you could state your name and spell your last.
Sure, it's Douglas Poliniak, he is in Peter.
Background.
Sure, I'm a graduate of Lehigh University. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering. I acquired that degree back in 1998. Since that time, I've been working in the field of traffic engineering. I've been a licensed traffic engineer, or engineer in the state of New Jersey for approximately the last 21 years. I testified before approximately 110 to 120 municipal boards within the state of New Jersey. This is my first time in the borough, so I'm looking forward to that opportunity.
Welcome.
And my qualifications, thank you.
I would ask that he be qualified in the field of civil engineering, specifically as a traffic engineer, and be able to provide a professional opinion in that field.
All righty. Folks, the same provisos that we have, he is expert opinions, but you absolutely should give them consideration and determine whether you accept them or not. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Surrounding the site and prepared a traffic impact assessment report dated April the 22nd, 2025.
Correct.
So for the benefit of the board and members of the public, I would like you to explain the basis and foundation of what you do to prepare a report, and then take us through the aspects of the report and your conclusions.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we said, we prepared a April 22nd, 2000 peak hour site traffic associated with the development. Do traffic counts to examine existing peak hour conditions, create a future condition or conditions with and without the proposed site traffic, and determine if there's any degradation in what we refer to as levels of service or delay for traffic movements at the adjacent intersections during those peak hours. The peak hours we look at are essentially the morning and evening rush hour timeframes, because those are the times when both the roadways and the site will be at their busiest. So what we did is first we looked at the trip generation for the apartments, the manual, which is a manual created by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. It has estimates for traffic associated with all sorts of land uses, and in this instance, for the apartments.
Used to prepare this report and rely upon. Would it be correct to say that that's the type of documentation, or the documentation, that traffic engineers use in formulating reports?
Absolutely. It's accepted data by traffic engineers, as well as the New Jersey Department of Transportation, as well as county engineering departments.
And it's used for the analysis by all types of land use boards in the state of New Jersey.
Correct.
Please proceed.
Yes, it calculates in 16, 26 entering, and 20 exiting, for a total of 46 movements. So what should be noted is that both the Institute of Transportation Engineers and NJDOT, the New Jersey Department of Transportation Engineers, considers 100 the number where they think that off-site degradations will be half that significant level. When looking straight at the ITE numbers, those numbers don't take into account existing traffic associated with the site that's currently there, or former traffic, as well as traffic that won't exist due to the fact that the site is being proposed essentially adjacent to or a block or so away from the Waldwick train station. We looked at census data. There were projections in 2023 for approximately 7 or 8% of residents within Waldwick using mass transit. So we anticipate that while there will be people who move in, prepared back in March. It was Wednesday and March 19th of this year. And we look at, like I said, the rush hour period. So we looked at 7 to 9 a.m. in the morning and 4 to 6:30 p.m. in the evening. And then what we do is we isolate the busiest hour in those time frames. So we found that the morning peak hour at the intersections of Harrison and Frederick and Harrison and West Prospect occurred from 7:45 to 8:45 in the morning, and the evening peak hour was 4:45 to 5:45 in the evening. Reviewing the traffic volumes for the peak hour, generally pretty low. West Prospect is the busiest road, as you would imagine. About 350 two-way up in the frequency at which they arrive at the intersection, and it calculates for us a levels of service, and that's based on the delay for movements at the intersection. It's rated like a report card, and A means exceptional levels of service, meaning very little delay, and F means that a turning movement at an intersection is operating at or above capacity for what it can handle. So then we ran the analysis for the existing conditions. What we found at those two intersections, the levels of service are operating at level of service B or better. So things are running pretty smoothly at those two intersections adjacent to the property. Then we go ahead and we look at a future condition, and we want to do a comparison to the future without the site-generated traffic and with the site-generated traffic. And to project a future, what we do is take growth rates that were established by the New Jersey Department of Transportation for Bergen County. And in this location, it's about 1.75% increase in traffic annually, and we looked at a build-out of 2 years. So we applied that growth rate to our existing volumes to create a 2027 no-build year. We then took that site traffic that I mentioned earlier, and we directed it and routed it to and from the site access points. And then we did another levels of service analysis with and without the traffic, with and without the site traffic, to determine if there's any substantial or significant impact with those additional volumes. And what we found is that there's not. We found that the levels of service at the Harrison Avenue intersections with Frederick and with West Prospect will all operate at a level of service C or better, whether or not the site-generated traffic is added to those locations or not. So in summation with respect to the analysis, this redevelopment of this property will have no changes or really perceptible impacts because the levels of service and delay won't significantly change. Also included in our traffic report is we reviewed the access design, the parking supply, and the internal circulation for the property. And as you heard from prior testimony, the main parking lot, and as you heard, I don't believe I said, when we did our analysis, we also analyzed the driveway movements and not just those two intersections. And the driveway will operate at level of service B or better. So it's a pretty low trip generator, the development. The volumes along the adjacent roadways aren't very high, so as I anticipated, the levels of service are very acceptable. So like I said, the access will be on West Prospect Street, and it'll operate at level of service B. Access is going to be about 85 feet from Harrison Avenue. I know 100 feet is preferred by the ordinance. There were some discussions from the last hearing. NJDOT actually requires roadways with much busier developments. So I have a lot of experience with driveways that are located, even closer to adjacent intersections than this. So I really don't have very much of a concern for the 15-foot discrepancy. As I said, it's a light trip generator. The turning movements into and out of the driveway are pretty low, as well as the volumes along West Prospect Street, so you're not going to experience any queues along the roadway that are going to back into that intersection of West Prospect into it with left turns into the subject property. If someone's making a left, there's a concern that as they wait for the bypassing traffic, you might create some queues along West Prospect as well. Level service A demonstrating very little delay. They would have to wait for a gap in traffic, which there's substantial amounts along West Prospect. Our projections of traffic were about one left turn vehicle movement into the driveway about every 10 minutes during the peak hour. So that's pretty infrequently that you're going to see a vehicle making a left into the driveway. And then it's truly the edge or the vehicle repair facility to the west and even Rite Aid. I think you heard substantial testimony. 87 parking spaces are provided, which will meet the ordinance requirement. Therefore, substantial parking will be provided. Those spaces are going to be 9 foot wide by 18 feet deep, 24-foot two-way aisle within the parking facilities, which meets typical design standards, and 88 parking spaces will be provided. So in summation, overall, like I said, the levels of service at the site driveway will be a B or better, anticipating the driveways will operate efficiently and safely based on that. And the site's been designed to meet typical standards with respect to parking supply and parking dimensions. And I think that the site is very well suited for the redevelopment from a traffic engineering perspective.
In connection with the analysis you did, you've also had the benefit of the Boswell report of May 2nd, 2025. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
The first comment is basically confirmation, as I read it, that your report is acceptable and that there's no operational changes that are proposed and the analysis is acceptable. That was in the first paragraph. So we have no comment there. But in paragraph 2, it states that there's certain residential parking along Harrison Avenue frontage, and it's assumed that it need to be altered. Could you just comment in regards to that?
Yes, currently there are approximately, I'm just checking my notes. There are access points along Harrison Avenue for the homes that are there. However, with this project, we're going to be introducing more driveways associated with the townhomes. So there's going to be a reduction in available parking along the northbound side of Harrison Avenue. Currently, there's about 6 parking spaces. It's going to go down to about 1 parking space available when you take into account distance required from stop signs, as well as each one of those driveways.
In connection with paragraph 3 of the Boswell report, there was a concern about the garage entry as it needing a car reader or a keypad or something, but with the elimination of the gate or a door or anything for that ingress and egress, that concern is now eliminated?
Yes, it is. I initially looked at the project with respect to the gate, and I thought if the gate were to exist, probably have to be during lower peak periods, even the evening time where traffic's not coming in and out, and West Prospect is very low volume. But obviously, the elimination of that gate would eliminate any delays as far as the gate opening or putting in a punch code or key fob or whatnot.
So just as a recap, you have certain levels of service at the site now, all acceptable services, Cs and Bs, correct?
Yes.
And on the basis of what the applicant is proposing, based upon your analysis of it using the ITE manual, those levels of service will not change.
That is correct.
In connection with the ingress and egress to the site, to the interior of the site, we have a 25-foot wide driveway.
Yes.
Acceptable standard?
Yes, it is.
And we had the comment from the board planner at the last comment with the development of this size and caliber, correct?
I agree, correct.
You would concur with that?
Yes.
In connection with the interior parking in the site, from a traffic analysis, driveway aisle width, backup turning radius and all can be accommodated.
Absolutely. Yep, the drive aisle width within that parking lot meets the standards, and so does the depth of the parking spaces.
From the standpoint of you and your expertise as a traffic engineer, do you see any negative impact whatsoever in connection with the applicant's proposal from a traffic standpoint?
I do not. Like I said, the delay associated with the project will be essentially imperceptible, and everything has been designed for the site to operate safely and efficiently.
Thank you. This concludes our presentation on direct testimony.
Thank you very much.
Trips was the key factor that they start to get concerned?
Yes.
Because in this, looking at figure 1 and 2, you have trips coming back and forth down West Prospect. I'm not really worried about Harrison or Fredericks because there's not very much at all either one. But West Prospect is where you're dumping most of your cars out onto.
Right.
And it would bump those numbers up 126. It's not bumping up very much at all, but it's still an area of concern that has more than 100 that you talked about. I mean,
yeah, I mean, maybe I wasn't clear. An increase of 100 trips. So,
increase,
yeah, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that.
Figures show it as like you said, on 1 or 2% increase.
Yes, like I said, during the busiest peak hour was the evening peak hour for the actual site, the development, and that was a little bit less than 50 total trips. So that's what I meant when we weren't reaching that 100 trip threshold.
Okay.
Is a lunch hour any measurable amount of time?
We generally don't look at a lunch hour because typically the residents who will live here will be at their place of employment. So there's not a lot of additional traffic associated with this development created during that time frame. That's why we look at the rush hour. It's everyone headed to work and everyone coming home at night.
Is that for every redevelopment or just Waldwick?
No, it's every mostly when you have a primary residential development, because that's just the flow of traffic.
Gotcha.
To build on that, I think at lunch hour, if I'm not mistaken, Harrison Ave is used as a point of parking for most of the businesses on West Prospect, because I do not believe they're allowed to park on the north side of West Prospect.
Correct, yep.
So what's the effect of the...
Northbound side, there's going to be a reduction of about 4 or 5 parking spaces with the project due to the driveways. So, those spots will have to be found further away from the lunch establishments.
And the parking garage allows for spots for the retail space that's only part of the redevelopment building. How about folks that want to pull in and go to Natals across the street? What happens there?
Well, I believe what we will be doing is posting like you have only for the retail establishments here. And there is a section of the statute, under the motor vehicle statute, that it's a tow away if it's other people parking there. And it's been done, it's done in all the communities.
And people
Done
adhere
in my
to the
parking
signs?
lot. I'm
Yeah.
across from the high school, it's done in my parking lot.
Can't imagine why.
Questions from the board?
Just a couple. On page 1, what's a full movement driveway?
Yeah, a full movement driveway means that you're allowed to make left turn and right turn into the driveway, and left turn and right turn out of the driveway.
And as a couple members answered, what's rush hour? Give me a definition of rush hour. What is that?
Yeah, basically we look at the busier commuter hours, and that's why we counted from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning and 4 to 6:30 in the evening, because during those time frames are when commuters are leaving or residents are leaving their homes in the morning and arriving back at nighttime.
And I ask everybody this question. Have you ever been there at lunchtime?
I have not been to the
Okay.
site during a lunchtime.
So-
Saturday lunchtime, not a weekday lunchtime.
I think your rush hour time may be off. I would look, as some of the members said, I would go there at lunch, problem, because you're taking those 5 spots somewhere in Harrison. And if I'm right, and
This hearing, I can verify it, is that the use of the parking spaces will be for the residents and for the retail shops that are there on the first floor.
okay, so again,
3,000 square feet of retail.
okay, so if you're going to Natals or Charlie's Place, you cannot park in that area.
You would be correct.
Okay, so if there's restrictive parking from Harrison between Frederick and West Nightingale, and you're losing those 5 spots, where are the people going to park when they go for lunch?
Well, that, as you heard the testimony, they'd have to park somewhere else further away. I will tell you that on the basis of the ordinance that has been adopted by the governing body, all effects of this redevelopment were taken into account. It was reviewed by, and had a hearing on it, was reviewed when the ordinance is developed.
So what does that mean?
That means that we are entitled, based upon
Your trucks. You can't park in Harrison between West Nightingale and Frederick, park on Frederick, or you won't be able to park on Frederick. So where are these people going to park? You can't park in the garage.
Well,
That's why I say-
the Harrison parking has the same restrictions to the north as well as to the south, so, it's resident parking, permit parking, 8 a.m. to noon. So it's the same restriction, whether it's close to this, up as you branch away from Harrison, from West Prospect along Harrison.
I would go there at lunch, and I would do a study again. You probably don't want to do it, and that's why I asked you what rush hour is, because the rush hour you're looking at isn't the busiest time for that intersection.
Let me back up a moment. The rush hours that you have looked at are based upon the empirical data that's in the ITE manual, correct?
Yeah, it's a combination of the two. As townhomes and apartments, generally, and I don't want to make a rule of thumb, people aren't home during lunchtime. You know, I'm at the office, my wife's at her office. So if we were to live in one of the townhomes or apartments, we're not going to be home during the lunchtime rush hour. We're not going to be affecting that time frame. That's why we don't study it, because this site is not going to have any impact on that time frame. If people are home and they want to visit one of those establishments, they're going to walk because it's right across the street. So there's real surrounding area during that lunchtime.
And just as a moment, there was a comment made a month or two ago about the parking. That's why Rite Aid's not going, because we need the parking from Rite Aid. So we'll have to tell the gentleman that can't park on Harrison anymore to go park in Rite Aid. But they're not supposed to? Well, they're not supposed to park in the garage either, because there's a sign posted, don't park or you'll get towed. Let's see who follows
They
that.
apparently did it, right? They took, went in a couple of months ago and started towing everybody out of the parking lot.
Mark?
In right.
You mentioned empirical data. When were these studies created? Prior to COVID or after COVID? Because as we know, with COVID, more people work from home. So the probability of people not being in their residence during the daytime may be different than what it was when this study.
In post, but again, I don't, I have the ability to work from home, but I don't work from home. But if I do work from home, I'm probably going to be hopefully at my computer and not driving around the intersection impacting traffic operations during that lunchtime period. Or I may go out to lunch from that location, but like I said, there's going to be very little traffic associated with this development during those lunchtime peaks.
Earlier you mentioned something, was the traffic based on the size of the land or the number of occupants? I didn't get that.
Yeah.
Size of the land?
Size of the land use, so 21 townhomes, 21 apartments, and then the retail component.
Okay.
Board, questions?
This is to our attorney. If, we have a lot of ordinances about parking spaces, spacing, and we don't know what's going into the retail at this point in time, and that dictates how many parking spaces, is that correct?
Generally speaking, the rule of thumb is 1 car per 200 is the general rule of thumb. And then there are modifications based upon a particular use.
Well, they're going to come in front of us when they get the retail in there to talk about the parking spaces or
Not
no?
necessarily.
No. If I may, Madam Chair,
Yes,
the
please.
redevelopment plan has a superseding regulation that's a blanket 1 per 400 square feet for non-residential regardless of the specific use. Recognizing it's a downtown location, it's a redevelopment with shared parking, so it doesn't get into that level of detail that you would the ordinance otherwise does, but the redevelopment plan.
Anyone else? You talked about the queue when people are making lefts into the garage. My concern that I mentioned wasn't about the queue and the backup to Harrison. Is there still parking?
Yes. 30-minute parking along the.
So they're, okay. We're not losing the parking on the south side of Eastborough.
No.
To the public, questions only. Sir? You'll be sworn in.
State your name, spell your last.
Andrew Gugliaro, A-G-U-G-L-I-A-R-O, 51 Highwood Avenue, New Jersey. Also fire chief in the borough.
All right, Chief, and I remember that you were sworn the last time. You're still under oath?
Absolutely.
Good enough.
Mr. Whitaker, statement / question.
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 No, he's a witness, but go ahead. This is also to you as well. So last time we were here talking about the parking, we also did say that the Hair Cottage patrons will be parking in that parking lot as well.
It's all taken into account, yes.
Correct, but we just said before that it wasn't for anybody else except for,
Hair Cottage is part of this development.
even as a separate building?
Yes. Okay. It's all part of it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
88, I think you said.
87.
87.
87?
Can I ask Board Member Schultz to repeat his original question that he stated earlier? On page 1?
What is a full movement driveway?
Yes. Regarding a full movement driveway, have you taken into consideration of a 46-foot ladder truck trying to pull into that driveway, either from the left side or the right side?
No, I have not contemplated a,
How about a 30-foot rescue truck?
no, I have not looked at templates accessing the drive.
Have there been any questions about?
Would not be within our domain to ask that, propose that, only with the governing
I'm just
body.
asking Mr. Whitaker because he's saying that it's a fluid driveway. How could it be a fluid driveway if you can't pull an emergency piece of apparatus in?
No, the
or out
question
of it?
you asked is if we consider making something no parking. We don't have the right to do that, is what I'm telling you.
Okay.
I didn't say it could not. I said I didn't review
So
whether or
if
not it
it's
could
a
do so.
fluid driveway and there are no restrictions to it, how can I pull a 46-foot ladder truck into it from either side of the street?
I don't think I understand the question.
So I have a 46-foot ladder truck
Sure.
that, depending on, doesn't matter whether it's coming from east to west
Right.
or west to east,
Right.
I'm not pulling into that driveway. So how is it a fluid driveway?
Why are you not pulling into the driveway?
Because I'm not going to be able, it's a tail swing.
Okay.
Tail swing pull in the driveway, I'm going to wind up hitting a car on the inside of the street.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I didn't review a turning template for those apparatus.
So, but if you don't have a turning template for the apparatus, how can it be a fluid driveway?
So,
Everything was taken into
I'll reverse the question. Do you have a turning template for the driveway?
I could absolutely.
No, do you have a turning template for the driveway now?
Right in front of me? No, I do not.
That's all I asked.
Okay.
Any more questions, Mr. Guerrero?
Yeah. How is it going to pull into the driveway?
It wasn't studied, we said that.
Okay. So I'll go back to my original question from last time. Safety. How is my ladder truck or my rescue truck going to pull into the driveway to?
Asked and answered.
Absolutely.
If there are no cars parked on the street opposite the driveway. do
The
you-
ladder truck or rescue truck will be able to fully pull into that driveway.
Okay, so the question really becomes, is this something that the council should look at relative to no parking zone because of that issue?
Absolutely, but I'm just going by the statement
No, I-
that the driveway was a fluid driveway and
And I
there were no
think-
restrictions to it.
I think when they're talking about a fluid driveway, generally speaking, they're talking about regular traffic, not rescue traffic.
Okay, no, I understand that.
Your concern is well placed, and I think that perhaps this may not be the place to address it.
No, I understand that, but
You're
in
pointing
my,
at the
in my
problem.
professional opinion, we're not in any way, shape, or fashion worried about safety here. We're-
Once again, my objection's placed on the record.
Yeah, just noted.
Thank you. Questions from the public? Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Hardick, is it?
Yes.
Yes, and I know.
Okay, you're still under oath.
You know, I wondered if you took consideration for all the buildings and businesses that are on my street where trucks are pulling out all morning, landscapers. I counted 10 this morning. And then you have CM and the school buses that are coming in to pick kids up for special schools. And the big white bus that comes to take people from the train tracks. Is that all considered in your traffic level?
If those vehicles turn through the intersections of Harrison with West Prospect and Frederick during those peak hours, then yes, they were collecting.
I think, how many times did you personally go there and check out driving? Because I drive there every day. How many times were you personally there and got to see the traffic? It's a danger. Go ahead.
I've been on site.
Any more question, folks? Public? Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Bittemo, you're still under oath?
You might have answered this at another meeting, this is the first one I was able to attend. So we have 21 apartments, is that right, and 21 townhomes. How many adult people do you expect would live in those that would have of cars? And how many cars will be accommodated in the parking?
So, the analysis was done at the last meeting that you missed, but I can tell you that the parking that is proposed meets the requirements in the ordinance, and that's what we have to do. And the borough planner can verify that for you.
Thank you.
No, it is an answer.
Well, it's
It
not-
con-
it doesn't
It
give you
conforms
information.
to what the ordinance requires.
One question more.
Yeah. Do we still have off-the-street parking for snow removal at night in our town?
Sure do.
Where will all the extra cars park when it snows?
In their driveways or garages, or in the parking lot,
There's only 1.5 parking spaces per house,
per apartment, per apartment,
per parking for the house, right?
per apartment.
Right? Am I correct on that, 1.5 parking spaces for the apartment?
Yes.
So if it's a couple, majority of couples have two, so if they have two cars and it snows, where will they park then? What will you do for them?
Explain how the 1.5 is
Yeah.
promulgated.
Yeah, so obviously, there may be a couple that has two cars, but in addition, there'll be a couple that has one car, so it averages out. And with the fact that the train station is only a block or so away, the reliance upon automobile ownership will be lower, and that's where it's 1.5.
Will you go talk to anybody in Harrison and find out how many people use the train?
No, this is having to do with this project. And this project is looked upon with its proximity to the train station as a transit-style facility in which the data that he has and the data that's been testified to and what is based on the ordinance that was adopted by the governing body
I heard that.
explains
I did
that the
hear.
1.5 is the accepted standard.
Anyone else in the public? Questions? We are up to comments from the board. This is the overall comments.
Madam Chair, I just have a few.
Sure.
Going through the last minutes, there were some questions in here. One of them was how the developer came up with 13D instead of 13 for fire suppression. Do we know when that'll get answered?
It was answered the last time, and the answer remains the same. The developer will construct it in accordance with the building code requirements. The board does not have jurisdiction to deviate and require an applicant, any applicant, to build and have any jurisdiction over building code requirements.
So the board can't vote no if you decide to put 13D in.
I will tell you, you are correct, but I'll let your board counsel instruct you on that.
It's a practical matter. The board cannot require anything beyond what's in the code, in the ordinance. That being said, there's nothing to keep an applicant from offering.
Roof. For the last three meetings, we've talked about this being a great location for the rail. Let's be honest, do you know what the viewship was for rail in 2019 from New Jersey Transit?
Not a relevant question.
Okay, well, I'm making a comment because you're overestimating the number of people that are going to be using the rail. They're not even 50% back with ridership. So this is a comment section, so I'm going to make a comment, okay? My comment is, can we please stop saying everybody's going to be using this rail or a certain percentage, because we're overestimating what they're going to use.
So I'm going to raise an objection to that. It's not based on any data or anything that he supplied.
That who supplied?
That you've supplied. You've
No, I just told you
testified as an
what,
opinion.
I told you what the ridership was. It was 53 million in 2019,
There's no basis, Mr. Singer, there's no basis for what he's testifying to.
and it's
Mr. Schultz, what is your
36.9 for last year.
Mr. Schultz,
Yeah.
what is your source for this information?
New Jersey Transit's website, their financial report every year.
It's not here.
It's not
Mr.
here?
Singer, it's got to be stricken from the record.
Okay. If you'd like, I'll send you the website so you can look at the numbers. But let's stop with this idea again that it's a great place because it's a rail hub, because that's a bogus reason for it.
I think
Thank
what
you.
you're going to have to understand, and I understand you're new to the board, and probably have not taken the course yet that board members are required to take within a certain period of time, with all due respect. You have to follow the mandates that are set forth in an ordinance. And the idea of any board member on any land use board in the state of New Jersey opining that the ordinance is wrong and therefore is not going to be acceptable for the purposes of rendering a decision would be inappropriate and would be returned by what the courts call arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable.
Is that the 13D and the 13 question, or my
That
question
is
on
the
the right?
comment, that's the comments you've made about stop talking about this as a good site. That's not what is before you.
Okay.
You are here with a site plan application that conforms to the requirements set forth in an ordinance adopted by the governing body.
I'm done with my
That's valid.
comments, thank you.
There definitely is a learning curve.
Oh, yeah,
So-
I mean, it's comments, you can make comments. but
I've been
Madam
saying it
Chairman,
for 2
let me-
years now, and there is still a learning curve.
Yeah,
But I think as a body of neighbors, I think as a body of people that want to see the best for Waldwick, I think as people that live next door to us and we go to dinner with, I think there has to be some semblance of respect. I think there has to be some tone that we respect each other. We could ask questions, we could give our opinions, and we don't have to be shunned for that. So it happens that we just come with attitude all the time, and we have to leave our attitude at the door. So we need to work together, whether we like it or not. And when you work together and you respect each other, things just seem better. So let's try to do our best in that part. That would just change things. And more importantly, we have 10 minutes left, because at 10 o'clock, we're out. So we need to keep moving, but that's something that's really important. And I would appreciate it if everybody would try to do that. We don't have to like this, but there's a responsibility that we've sworn to take, we took. So it doesn't mean that we have to like everything that happens. That's why we have ordinances, so they can be followed and adhered to. And then there's a wide range of things that can go from best suited, which means people spend a lot of money, and not the best. Safety is very important. That should be top of the list, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
And that's not, and, listening to me, but, comments. So where are we? Ma'am, one moment, please. We're on the board. Do we have any comments on the board?
Yeah, I have a comment. At the last meeting, there were several errors on the drawings with regards to height for the garage, and we never were provided additional drawings. There are other typos on the drawings that are provided from the architect before we can make a decision, especially something with regards to the height of the garage. The drawing stated 13 and a half feet, and his testimony stated 14 and a half feet, yet the drawings do not reflect.
We said that the site plan would govern, and the site plan had the 14 and a half. I'm turning to Mr. McGinnis right now, because I don't have the engineering yet. But that's what we had stipulated last time, but in answer to your question, we will, I'll confirm that it's 14 and a half, and the plans would be modified to reflect that.
And then the other question is with regards to the overall height at 52 feet. I have a question for you, Mr. Whitaker. You stated that the UCC states that the roof line is the floor on the roof. But if a parapet is more than 50%, doesn't that count as the overall height of the building? Reason being, if I had to put a ladder up there to get there from a safety standpoint for the fire department, do they need a 52-foot ladder, or do they need a 48-foot ladder to get onto the roof? And I think that question was asked at the meeting from the chief.
What we provided to the board is a conforming height as per the ordinance.
The ordinance is
With the
50 feet.
parapet. So we meet the requirements of the ordinance.
No, with the parapet, it's 52 feet.
Right.
With the roof line, you stated that it was 50 feet, 48 feet, and that was in compliance. But with the parapet being more than 50% coverage on the roof line, that would include the parapet and the overall height of the building, correct?
Right.
Mr. Geiger, I'm going to ask Paul just to look at, I'll pull up the ordinance too, but
There are exceptions for rooftop structures and appurtenances. I need to double check the exact language on the parapets, but it was not flagged as a variance or deviation based on the measurement of height. But I'll need to, I can look.
Can you confirm that,
Yes.
please?
yeah, we were relying on the report that said we were in compliance.
And Mr. Romano, I have my notes here. I have engineer testimony 14-foot high is the garage.
No, that was the testimony, but the
Yeah.
drawings
Yeah.
don't reflect that, as well as the windowless basements that had, on each end of all the buildings, stated that they had doors that go to the back. When we questioned that, they said that was, again, a typo. And since this is now all rental property, windowless basement is a concern. Especially since those dens have bathrooms and closets and are more than 70 square feet, which you know as well as I know, any person would probably use them as a bedroom, which would be non-conforming. That's all I have to say.
I have a note that says 4 stories, 50 feet. That wasn't with the paraffin, right? That's what you're saying? It was another...
The drawing stated it's 52 feet. As per the architects, he said it was, and that the doorway, I'm just going based on what he stated, and that the drawing states that it's 13 and a half feet.
I will check the drawings and confirm it with the board.
Please, thank you.
What I'll do is have Tibor, the census in Conklin, and Robert's actual height, and then the plans would be revised later. Because we recognize there's a lot of revisions that have to be made.
Thank
Based
you.
on the comments made here. We don't do them piecemeal, we do them with, we've got all the comments.
Ah, makes sense. Anyone on the board? Mr. Singer, anything?
Looking at the time, and the question becomes, would this be a fair hearing and vote for the applicant if we had those confirmations in front of the board for the vote?
You have 5 minutes to do them. I've been here a while. I think the board members, I have to do a summation yet, so I would rather, I think the board members would be much more comfortable in my coming back to confirm the numbers that you want to hear. I
With all
do a
due respect,
summation.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
No, I wasn't proposing or suggesting that we would conclude.
Push to a vote tonight.
No, not at all.
Thank you.
I
Anybody
appreciate
thought
that.
that would be wrong.
Thank you.
Okay?
5 minutes.
Okay? All right. I do want to do one thing, though. I need an A25, which is the traffic assessment report, as an exhibit, just housekeeping. You're up to
Sure.
A24, this would be A25.
8:25.
I will provide you with that information and just make an announcement that the hearing will be carried to
We are continuing to June 4.
June 4.
Yes.
And any and all extensions are granted. of course.
And other than summation, the hearing is closed, correct? So it's my summation and then vote.
Yeah.
Is there
that-
anyone that we should be hearing from? Anyone else?
With that being said, as long as it's part of your summation, you're going to incorporate the confirmations.
Yes, and I'll have a letter
Yeah.
confirming it to the professionals.
And so we'll admit that's what we're holding evidence open for.
Yes.
Fair enough?
Makes sense. Do we want to?
Comments from the public?
I thought, yeah, we only did the board? I thought we were done. Oh, we need comments from the public? Yeah,
Why don't we hold them
I
till,
thought we did.
why don't we hold the comments until June 4th as well?
Understood.
Yeah, sorry, folks. Nothing's happening until it's finished and voted on, so you don't have to worry. You just have to come back in another month on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, if that's
Yeah,
not
if they
too much
come back on
trouble.
a Tuesday, we got a problem.
Well, I may come on a Tuesday.
Okay.
Ms. President, there was a hand up question.
Yeah, we're waiting, I think. So we are continuing on to June 4th. This is not closed. Folks, you're invited back. And I think we're closing,
The only other thing I ask.
Yes, sir.
Is that
oh, sorry, see, told you.
we can confirm, with the lights didn't go off, we didn't confirm that we will have a full board. I mean, I know.
Well, as long as we're all alive and
I
well,
know
we'll be here.
It gets a little crazy in June with graduations and other things, but.
We'll do the best we can. Board, yes, planning board, we'll do the best we can to be here.
Is there anyone who knows they're going to be away?
Matt will not.
Matt?
Mr. Schultz, you'll be here? All right, motion to adjourn this evening. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Motion to adjourn, Dan and Mark. Thank you, folks. I thought I shut my timer off, but I didn't.
Thank you for the use of the pen.
I have something to sign. I made a note.